Alright, so now we are going to design a component here which is going to handle two components. The one which you see on the right hand side, the categories, that is the right hand side menu, and the second portion is this entire component where you see the list of products. So we are going to make one component which will have these two components. So now let's start working on this component which I've just discussed. As I mentioned about the main component, which will have two components, so I'm going to create a folder called main container. This is also going to be a component which will have two more components. So inside this main container, we'll begin with the creating files. The first is the index.js and of course the CSS file. So now let's import the related files here. First thing is React and the second is the CSS file. So now we are going to create this component as a class component because this is going to contain the state. Of course, if you are using the functional component and using the useState hook to take state is also absolutely fine. But ideally when your applications are larger, it is still recommended that we go with the Redux and the class-based component. We'll also have a look at it that if you do not want to take the Redux, how you can manage only with a hook. But in this application at least, we are going to try the class component only. Now let's take few related divisions and classes. Let's give a name here, sidebar, just to check how it will look. And this we are going to import in the component. So let me just export this first. I'll say export default, the main container. I'll say import main container and the respective path. Let's include this main container here in app.js. And now we'll have a container for the JSX. So now the sidebar is displaying. Now, because this is a main container component, which will have two components, the sidebar and the other product related component. So let's begin with the sidebar component. I'm going to add a folder for that. Let's create the JavaScript and CSS file for this. Now this is going to be a functional component. So now this is going to return the JSX. Let's create a division. Now there will be few items here in sidebar which I'm going to put static. Later on it will be dynamic. So let's add few classes with the respective divisions with some meaningful name which eventually will be applied. Accordion will actually display the kind of drop down which is expanded and closed. So it's a very common way of dealing with the menu. Now let's first of all add the sidebar in the main container and we just keep on checking the updates. So I'll import the sidebar which is inside the sidebar folder, and instead of this sidebar text, now we are going to add the component. Let us see what is the issue. We need to export the component, so let's add the export statement. Now you see that the menu is getting displayed. Let's add the remaining items as well. So now you see that the quotes is displayed as a sub menu. These all will be dynamic at a later stage. So let's try adding few more items. Now let's check the output. Now you see that we have all the menu items. The slash is appearing at the end of items because there is a content CSS applied, which is in this file. This slash is actually appearing after every item. So let me just comment this. So let me remove this. Now the menu items are displayed as we wanted. Now let's apply some CSS to this sidebar. Let's apply some formatting to main container. Now this is going to contain some formatting for the categories I'm going to display on the sidebar. So this is the next class we are going to format now. Now I'm pasting here some CSS related to this card accordion. Now the box is not getting displayed. Let me quickly go through the CSS which I have pasted. Here is the CSS where we have the border related settings and the margin. There is also a last child related setting which is going to apply on the last element which is displayed in the card menu option. Now I'm pasting the card heading related settings here, the CSS settings. Let me quickly go through. The first thing is I'm changing the cursor. Whenever the cursor is moved over that item, there has to be a pointer. And then there are few settings for font and color related to anchor tag. These are the settings. Now I am pasting the card body related settings here. Now you see that the entire interface has changed. Now I'm pasting the accordion related various other settings where when the accordion is active, inactive, then what all formatting has to be given. That is given with various pseudo elements. So to get the details, you can certainly check the resources. Alright, so this is what the sidebar will look like. Of course, there are a lot of things here on the sidebar itself which will be eventually displayed. But as we move on, that will be getting updated. Now in the next section, we are going to start implementing and designing the second section of main container, which is the product display component.